Hello.
Hello. Well, we recently reacted to a lot of nice comedy video about Australia, but today it's a little bit more serious. It's about Australian rise to global power. I'm not sure if Australia is there yet. Well, Europe is collapsing right now, the rise of the far right in Europe. In Germany, they had a big protest against the far right movement. So maybe like Australia will soon be the last bastion protecting the world from fascism. I
Yeah,
don't know.
right.
Because in North America, we are doomed. In Canada, we are doomed. We are here in Thailand.
We are not doomed.
Yeah, no. Anyway, let's react to it by the OSA YouTube channel.
Let's get started.
Is Australia the next big thing in the world? Well, okay, I guess it's big, but I mean, like, is Australia the next hot thing? Okay, you got me there too. I mean, will the last frontier be the next frontier to rise to global power? There might be a good chance. But let's talk about some of their challenges along the way, and it's not just being surrounded by animals that will kill you if you look at them strangely.
Yeah, I hate
First, let's
you.
actually go to the place. It sits here under the earth out of view from anybody. It's huge, it's flat, it's coastal, and it's dry. So dry. 1/3 of Australia is desert and 1/3 of it is semi-desert,
Whoa.
making up the outback, which changed the Australians from posh, manners-loving British criminals to brash, wallaby-riding bogans. Since they couldn't live there, the Australians huddled on the coasts into large cities. In fact, 5 of them make up over half the population, and
Wow,
Heard.
half of the population live in these 5 cities. It's interesting because I'm from Canada and 70% of the population in Canada live near the US border. It's like, but we don't live in the middle, not because it's hot, because it's too cold. That's the exact problem with Australia, but opposite. So we live near the border, and you guys live near, I'm guessing, the coast, all
Where
around.
is Cran?
What is what?
Canberry?
Oh, I don't know.
Cran?
What is Cran?
Wait, I think there's a city named Cran.
Oh.
Cran. I
Damn,
don't know.
Where did you learn that?
all Australians live on the east
I
coast
think
on
Darwin
the
is
other
on
side
top,
of those
right, somewhere?
mountains,
I think
making
it's
Perth
not.
the most isolated major city on Earth, so you really don't want to know what goes on there.
Whoa.
The
Perth.
west was too dry, the north was too wet, the south had 100-meter tall cliffs, the interior is probably the closest thing to hell on Earth there is,
Whoa.
and the east is actually really nice. I'm so jealous of their weather and their shining sun and their happiness and their lack of this and their... So what
Yes.
do these Australians in the east do all day other
So
than
we go
catch
into Perth.
30-meter high waves? Duh, they farm. Australians never do anything small, and I mean anything, and their farms are no exception, being some of
Whoa.
the largest on Earth, with 55% of their land technically used for farming.
Wow.
Although most of that farmland looks like this. Dry and wide. Why doesn't it look like this? Because of that. The Australians don't have that. Sure, they have rivers, but the
Oh.
important ones where people live, namely the Murray-Darling Basin, which makes up over
Oh.
half of water...
Half of the river are in that region, so they don't have a lot of river. That's why it's so dry. My
consumption are
God.
constantly at risk of drying up. Sure, they have the ocean, but that doesn't do much when it's saltier than the average YouTube comment section. And the billabongs around Australia don't do much when you could be eaten alive
Yeah,
for swimming
right?
in them. Water security is the first big challenge Australia will need to
Oh.
face, and so far they're not doing a great job.
So
See,
lucky.
Australia gets wet from 2 main cycles, the Southern Oscillation and the Indian Ocean Dipole. Sometimes the high pressure air is over here, sometimes it's over here. How the wind works, who knows? That's only up to the Most High to decide. But however it works, all you need to know is that Australia has
my-
3-year cycles of being very dry and 3-year cycles of being very wet.
Oh
Oh.
my God.
3 years. It's a 3-year cycle.
How can I survive? Do you know we have no water? Do you remember the city that we live? They need to go around the city to keep out the water.
Yeah, we used to
What
live
the heck?
during the dry season in Thailand because in Thailand there's this like 6 month dry, 6
Yeah.
month wet, and in the city there was so no water.
Yeah, don't have enough water to
that they had
shower. It's
to
crazy.
shower,
And
so they had to.
how you guys manage everything? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
What did they have to do to get us water?
The truck
They had to the truck and put
Okay.
that in the water
in the
river.
bucket.
In the bucket.
in bucket. It's it's like poor people need, need
Typically
water.
named the long dry and the big wet. This is how rain generally comes, not by the seasons but by the long and the wet. That's a huge problem for water security during the dry cycles, which have more recently been looking like a contest to burn the most animals possible. But the thing is, Australia has a lot of land and not a lot of people, so they make a ton of food and end up shipping it off to the world. Not a big deal, right? Wrong! Technically, with every ounce of food they ship off, they're also shipping off the water that was used to make that food, also called virtual water. And because of huge calorie exports, restrictions on foreign food and crops entering the country, and some subsidies given to farmers, it makes Australia the largest virtual water exporter on Earth. The driest continent on the planet is also technically the largest water exporter too, giving away as much as their stored water reservoir every year. That's not going to go very well when Australia gets even more dry from a changing climate and fires, droughts, dust storms rage on and river inflows dry up.
Wait, so far he's explaining why Australia is not going to be the superpower. I want to see where it's going with this.
Are going to feel like that. Dry and long. Did you know Australia was made when Britain couldn't send their prisoners to America anymore because of, that whole thing? And they couldn't send them to Africa because the tropical diseases were seen as too harsh for even murderers to live through, so they sent them here. And then they looked around and realized there was nothing, and it was kind of hard to build a city from nothing. So they gave the prisoners economic freedom to go get a bag and build this new country. There was still some beef between the ex-convicts and the elites until the 1850s in a gold rush where a monopoly was tried and failed, so now anyone can go and get rich. Ugh. I guess these convicts now deserve real rights, so they got them. And boom! There's the whole colonial history of Australia with independence given in 1901. Now it's free, equal-ish, and ready to industrialize. Luckily they knew what to industrialize into. Digging! Dig, 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 dig. Australia is a massive exporter of iron, coal, gold, copper, nickel, gas, zinc, lead, manganese, aluminum.
Wow! Wow! Wow!
Oh, you fell asleep there.
And contrary to like Africa, right? They don't have the American or the Chinese that go and try to steal their gold by like giving them money to put
gold, gem, things.
In Africa they have a lot too, but in Africa, unfortunately the Chinese and the American, they compete to be the one that will put their like infrastructure there to hire the local to literally take everything away from them.
Yeah,
that's why a lot of countries stay so poor there.
They have everything. Why then they're still not really rich,
Finish my list of metals. Right? Titanium, uranium, silver. Yeah, if it's a metal, chances are Australia probably supplies it to you, especially iron or coal. 70% of all their exports are raw materials straight from the ground, making them a little dependent on world markets for monetary stability and making all of their other economic sectors completely uncompetitive on the world stage. But who cares? They're young and they're turned and got ditches galore. Tripling the per capita income since 2000 from the investment put into mining by...
Triple!
Just kidding, it's mostly by the US, UK, and Belgium. China is just the one who eats all of the iron. And the extra money is put into other sectors. Despite what I say, Australia is still a highly diversified, rich economy. Shocking, I know. Most of that economy is based in the cities, as most Australians are in fact cowards and refuse to live among the dingoes in the outback. And the data is great. Low inflation, falling unemployment, high GDP growth, and they haven't had a recession in 3 decades.
Whoa.
Yes, decades, not years. Most of the growth coming from new immigrants coming into the barren land or feeding metal to these Asian countries who seem to never get full. What about credit? Oh, there's the problem.
Thai people are addicted to gold, let me tell you this. I've never seen a country that want to have gold more than Thailand. So as long as Australia has gold, but Thailand are going to take it.
When they're hiding in their perfect shiny economy.
And give it to
Credit has
America.
increased almost 8 times since 2000, outpacing GDP, which only grew by 3 times. Almost all of the new credit grew from housing. Australia might be sprawling, but it's incredibly dense in the places where people actually want to live.
Same
with
in Canada.
more and more immigrants coming into the port cities where housing can't really spread outwards, raising the price of a bungalow. And the tax code forces Australians to get addicted to buying more and more housing. They have something called negative gearing, which isn't what Lance Armstrong did when he got caught. Instead, it's essentially when you buy a house or land so that it goes down in value and you cut it off your tax bill. About 20% of
Oh.
Australians have an extra property for investing. Rich guys, I respect it. They just want to make some money. But the main consequence is Perth being the most affordable major city in Australia. By the way, Perth was also in the top 20 most unaffordable cities on Earth in 2021. So you can imagine
Canada,
how the
number
other cities are doing.
3.
It's like a country.
Wow.
Wait.
It's the cheapest big city in Australia, but it's also one of the most expensive in the world. It means that all the other cities are very expensive.
On
Okay.
Earth in
Good.
2021. So you can imagine how the other cities are
See?
doing.
Oh my
Sydney, Melbourne, you have New Zealand, you have Adelaide, you have Brisbane, and you have Perth in 20th position. And see, Vancouver is there in Canada, and Toronto is there. Canada is getting especially very expensive.
It's like a country where half the population lives in LA. They might be rich, but things get expensive. So their dirty economy based on dirt, and dirt, which is also pretty overcredited and hasn't had a recession in a minute, is pretty damn volatile to swings in global metal demand and housing prices. Next time they do have a recession, I wouldn't expect it to be cute like this little koala. I'd expect it to be more...
Zombie.
So why do I think Australia might be a growing power throughout the century? It's simple, really. They're secure. Now, young Australians may look in the mirror and feel pretty insecure about themselves, but then they'll remember, I have coal and money and food, and feel a whole lot better about themselves. They're the main supplier of raw materials to Asia. They're like an English coal miner slapped in the middle of Asia, or on the outside, I guess. And because of that, the UK, and much, much, much more importantly, the US loves to work with them. Australia is in pretty much every Pacific Defense Treaty the US and friends make, and they're...
Yeah. Do you know this? Work with them, not steal from them. Which America usually have a colonized and mindset, but with Australia they cannot, because Australia is not a poor country. So
Australia is in pretty much every Pacific Defense Treaty the US and friends make, and they are huge suppliers of weapons and military technology to each other. The day the Americans abandon the Australians is the day the Americans switch from God-loving freedom to the metric system. The people who say Australia is going to have to choose between the US and China one day are wrong. Australia has already chosen the US. China is only one of their buyers, a pretty big one, but it's still only one of them. If China slows down in growth and demand for ground sludge falls, maybe from their anciently aged population or insane lockdowns, the Aussies surely will too. But they still have India and Southeast Asia to sell to, who are ready to grow and don't seem to be bothered with environmental ethics. And if they
yes, countries like Thailand are growing a lot right now. India is growing a lot. So these countries are growing a lot. So they will need Australian mineral and things.
sell to who are ready to grow and
No.
don't seem to be
You don't think Thailand is growing? Thailand is growing.
Going back.
Thailand is growing exponentially when it comes to economy, no? And just the
Do you
quality
mean
of the infrastructure and everything.
Getting expensive, right?
Thailand is getting extremely modern.
Modern. I mean, I feel like this for 10 years already and not really going modern at all.
Okay, so you don't agree?
No.
Okay.
I hope they're doing better job than this.
be bothered with environmental ethics. And if they slow down exporting or making Tim Tams and roux sausages to keep some of their water drinkable, they can get some extra food from New Zealand, who seems to be the identical twin of Australia, except with mining switched to agriculture. Plus, Australia will never, ever, ever run out of energy, having some of the the largest coal reserves. And whenever that gets too unpopular for energy, it's legitimately the best place on Earth to put solar and wind farms in the empty, cloudless, flat outback. Cheap, abundant, and practically free
there's a lot of
energy could
potential
be
that is
more
not touched yet.
manufacturing at home. Why not make some steel plants, being a massive exporter of the two main materials, iron and coal after all? Steel factories are good for young boys. I remember my first molten steel spill. Yup, turned me into a man. They definitely have the room to grow and let more blokes in, especially in smaller towns, being one of the least densely populated, most desolate countries on Earth. That's why they'll have a great future. They're small and rich and vast with room to grow, and everything they need they have and is secure. Food, materials, energy, capital, defense, just not water unless you're talking gnarly waves. It's boring, it's slow growth, and it's not exciting per se, but exciting for a country usually means something like...
Suji, what do you think about Australia becoming a superpower?
Amazing. I
Yeah.
think they can be on their own because they have everything. I mean, if they have strong military, I think they're gonna be able to protect themselves
Yeah,
well.
contrary to like Africa, right? The problem with Africa is that they cannot do everything on their own. So they need America or China to go build infrastructure or power plant or thing like this in their country, and then they employ African at low wages, and they ended up taking all the mineral for them. So they cannot become a rich country in Africa.
This is so sad though, because I'm curious who the first one in Australia that can make Australia rise like
That's
this,
true,
not like
right?
in Africa.
Because the British invaded, they bring some prisoner to kill a lot of Aboriginal, right? But then they left because they're like, there's no potential here. That's what they said in the video, like no potential. And then Australia, some people probably settled in Australia and stole the land. But who at one point said, oh, it's going to become a very like successful country, because there was no infrastructure at the beginning. So
No.
you're right about that. 35 baht is $1, so it's all $1, $1.25, and it's a pretty good size. Like this, for example, this one is matcha green tea. It's a pretty good size for $1.50, less than $1.50, like $1.25 or something.
It looks fancy.
Yeah, it's like yeah, and you pay with the phone. You pay with the phone. You scan here. This is the coconut. So less than $4 for 3 drink. This is a neighborhood. See, 7-Eleven. Do you have 7-Eleven in your country? Wherever you're from watching? We are in the countryside of Thailand, in a small street. Bro. Delivery driver for something. You can see a lot of motorbike. Very popular mode of transportation in Thailand.
Oh shit.
We had two of them, or they would escape. This is the method our dog make in 2 weeks. So that's what they do in 2 weeks. Oh, Lefty.
Hey, you don't try to go out now. His mommy gonna cook for you soon. Taiwanese matcha latte macchiato.